So a year ago when we were watching Joker, a teaser trailer comes on for something called Tenet.
Yeah.
And all I see is Christopher Nolan, and I pretty much shit my pants.
Yeah.
He's literally my favorite director. Yes, I would say more than Kubrick.
What a fucking loser.
I mean, my son's middle name is Nolan.
I didn't know that.
Did you not know that?
Oscar Nolan Bayer.
In his passport, it says that.
I did not know that.
Named after Mr. Nolan.
That's funny. Welcome back to the Burning Boat Show. This is a really exciting episode. We just watched the movie Tenet twice, not once,
back to back,
but twice, back to back, and this is our review of it. We will warn you at some point about spoilers. So obviously, like I said that in the episode already, if you don't want to know anything about the movie, just watch one of the other podcast episodes. But about, I think, 30 minutes in, we really start getting into stuff that you probably won't want to hear if you want to watch the movie. But we will warn you.
We'll warn you. We'll say spoiler alert, and then you can stop.
We can stop the episode. And we also want to take the time to thank our patrons on Patreon. If you want to help sponsor us, there will be a link below. Otherwise, enjoy the episode. Okay.
On today's podcast, we're reviewing
Tenet
by Christopher Nolan. It's our second go at reviewing a film on the podcast.
After Joker.
We did the Joker last year. We do one film a year.
We only review IMAX movies.
That's what we're into. That's the only thing we like to watch.
It's honestly such a spectacle to go to IMAX. It's such an event.
It's like a big deal.
Yeah. It feels like a big deal.
You gotta prepare yourself.
And I know you said once you got a little frame, because you were one of the first people who watched it. They gave you.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. They're not doing that, but
yeah, I went and watched Dunkirk in IMAX, also Christopher Nolan. And when I left, they were handing out little Ziploc bags, tiny little ones, where inside was a single IMAX film frame from the film. Or from that, I don't know what the fuck it was.
Yeah, it's the 70 millimeter print or whatever.
Pretty cool.
The negative.
But we're gonna try to do a spoiler-free review to start with.
Yeah,
and then we'll do spoiler alert.
And we'll put a spoiler alert in.
Yeah.
But we also understand if you want to go into the movie having not heard anything about it.
Yeah, because that's what we did.
That's what we did.
Let's talk about that. So a year ago when we were watching Joker, a teaser trailer comes on for something called Tenet.
Yeah.
And all I see is Christopher Nolan, and I pretty much shit my pants.
Yeah.
He's literally my favorite director. Yes, I would say more than Kubrick.
What a fucking loser.
I mean, my son's middle name is Nolan.
I didn't know that.
Did you not know that?
Oscar Nolan Bayer.
In his passport, it says that.
I did not know that.
Named after Mr. Nolan.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I'm a big, I'm a fanboy.
Nice.
I mean, even back to when we went to school together, we had an assignment where we had to pick a favorite film of ours and then present it to the class in what was called a film night.
Yeah.
We came in after school. And what did I pick? Memento.
Ooh.
Memento movie night.
Very nice.
So, and my favorite film ever is Inception.
Was I there for that night?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you...
I picked Wall-E.
Wall-E, yeah.
I don't remember it being your favorite film of all time. I think it was
No.
Pick a movie.
Yeah, pick a movie. Yeah, for sure. But I've obviously picked something I like.
Yeah, I like Wall-E.
Yeah, I like Memento.
Okay, well, I seem kind of like a kid now, but okay.
It's an interesting choice, I gotta say. I mean, I had
Wall-E's fucking sick.
I had it on DVD,
based on
so who am I to say? Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing, the computer that tries to take over.
Wow.
It's the same shape. It's called
this is a whole other conversation.
Okay, yeah. The whole thing is based on it.
So
anyways, we get it. You're a big fan.
When we saw that trailer,
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, I'm excited. And I made it a point to not watch anything else about the film leading up to it.
Yeah.
So I would avoid all the trailers, which was difficult because they started playing in front of YouTube videos. And I've never done that before with something I wanted to watch. I don't really, like, I guess the reason was I just wanted to go into it without knowing anything, not knowing anything about who's in it, what the plot is, just knowing that it's the next Nolan film.
Because you never know what's going to surprise. Like, I watched 1917, and I went on the internet literally for like a second just to go like, what's the rating of this thing?
Yeah.
You know, just that, what's a general, like, what's the... And then I read the first line in one of the like Google things was like, oh, the editor talks about how it was editing a one-shot movie.
Right.
And I was like, motherfucker.
Yeah, there you go.
It doesn't ruin it, but now I can't have the experience of going in there and at some point going,
oh my God.
Wait a minute.
It hasn't cut yet.
We haven't fucking cut.
Yeah. But like, I mean, you ended up kind of doing the same thing. Not watching any trailers.
I did watch one.
Oh.
I watched one of the earliest ones. My brother's girlfriend had, or his wife, his wife had shown it to me.
He just went to their wedding as well.
At the time, fiance had shown it to me. But all they had shown in the trailer was this idea of, spoiler alert, things kind of going backwards.
Yeah, I don't know how much that's a spoiler. I can't.
It's in the trailer.
We shouldn't assume. Yeah, and we'll talk about anything that is in the trailer.
Yeah.
Before we go into a more detailed analysis/review.
Yeah.
But to kind of follow this theme of not wanting to have anything spoiled for us or know anything about it going in, we were like, well, let's go to the
Midnight
first showing of this film ever. And it premieres worldwide on the 26th of August. Well, it did premiere on the 26th. Not worldwide, sorry, internationally.
Yeah.
And in the States, it premieres on the 2nd of September.
Yes.
Meaning that, like, very rarely does that happen, that something that's
almost never
a Hollywood blockbuster premieres.
Yeah, it would be strange.
Not in the States first.
Yeah.
So we suddenly are in a position to be like some of the first people in the whole world to watch this film.
Yeah.
And here at the IMAX in Copenhagen, they were showing the film on the 25th at midnight.
Yeah. I'm assuming almost every country would do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're part of like the first, there's only one showing of that.
We're part of like the first couple hundred people in the world to see that.
We could have leaked the film. We could have filmed it on our phones.
That was exciting.
Yeah.
But it was also fucking hard.
Well, you guys, Robin and Mads, go to bed.
Yeah, I mean, we go to bed at like
kind of an unreasonable hour. I think like 10 o'clock or something. Or 11 for you.
No, it's like between 10 and 11.
10 and 11. Mm-hmm. So you guys had to stay up. Robin fell asleep and almost didn't show up. Mm-hmm. We were worried for a second there.
I still showed up early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we wanted because it's an event.
Yeah.
We go to McDonald's before. We order a coffee and we sit there and we await.
Talk about what's going to happen.
And how we're feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're excited.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It was good. And also, I didn't want to be sitting at home getting tired while my girlfriend went to bed. And I'm just like, I got to stay up still. So I wanted to leave to get it started.
Even waiting till 10:30. It's weird to have something at the end of the day where you're just
waiting for it to start.
I was literally sitting there like
Weren't you happy that you got to leave early?
Yeah, I was like, I'm ready. I'm done.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't care if I'm early.
You weren't. You were late.
I know, because I came to the front of the movie theater.
Me too.
This is a side story, but I couldn't find McDonald's.
So the film starts, and I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I don't even know who's in it. I know that I've seen the poster obviously because I walked in, so I know that the lead is a black guy, and that's all I know.
I don't see color, but okay.
I don't even know who the actor is.
Yeah.
And so everything is just exciting. I mean, it was a crazy experience to be able to like, oh, that's that guy, and he was played. Oh my god, and there's this person, and like suddenly you're seeing everything. You haven't built up any expectations in your head. So, what did you think?
Well, first of all, let me also back up and say it really feels like there's a few directors, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, obviously, like who their favorite directors and stuff. But sometimes I think back and I go, oh, I wish I could have been there when 2001 first came to the movie theater, or Eyes Wide Shut or something. Like somebody who was at the top of his field coming out with a movie just had to be a spectacle of like, oh, I gotta see this thing. And I think especially as those kind of historic directors become bigger and bigger, there's more and more secrecy kind of involved in the project. So there's just this feeling when you get to the movie theater of like, I'm gonna watch, I don't know, this. It feels a little bit historic.
Yeah.
There's a, you know,
it does.
There's only so many. There's be like Quentin Tarantino came out with another movie. I'd be like, yeah, Midnight Showing.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the best ever.
Nicholas Winding Refn, maybe, yeah. He's just like he's in that in his
aura of like Nolan films are considered their own genre at this point.
Yeah,
it's like on another level.
It's a $200 million budget. I mean, just what can you do with $200 million? There's so many things that you're just like, I want to see. Yeah.
Whoa.
Anyway, so we went to the movie, and let's just go right after having watched the movie.
Yeah. What was the first things? We didn't talk.
No, we sat there.
We were completely silent.
This fucking song is bumping.
It was a crazy song that's playing in the credits
in IMAX. So like the speakers are just
loud.
Like, yeah.
You're so like affected by that music.
Yeah, and you're a little bit delusional because even me, I mean, I go to bed at like 12.
Yeah.
You know, I'm staying up extra 2-3 hours here. You get a little bit delusional by the end, and there's a lot of thinking that you have to do in the film. And we get out of the movie theater, and I think the first thing was,
I said, I don't know what the fuck just happened.
Yeah, all of us were just like,
what the fuck just
happened?
So
confused.
Yeah, so genuinely
and I
confused.
think kind of like looking at each other like,
fuck?
Are you gonna say that
you
like, oh, this was a masterpiece, right? And I was gonna go like, fuck, I didn't understand anything. And I didn't really like it the first time. I was kind of halfway through the movie, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm into this.
I kept thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I was going into it with such a massive bias.
Yeah.
Of like, favorite director ever. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, this guy does not
disappoint, and I'm constantly being like, okay, just wait, wait. You'll get there. It'll get there, and you'll have that feeling of like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And that moment just never really came, and I think it was because it was just so overwhelmingly confusing and such an epic concept.
Yeah, and we should break it down as well. It was so hard to hear the dialogue in the IMAX theater.
Yeah, that was such a bizarre experience.
I was like having such trouble understanding it, and there are subtitles, but they're in Danish. So I could pick up maybe like every word here and there and kind of be like, okay, I kind of get that if I couldn't understand something. But then there's so many scenes, is this a spoiler? Where it's just, they're in situations where there's a lot of noise or there's something kind of obscuring their mouth or something. And I just, from that, could not understand what they were saying. And that film is so dependent on, we should say, we watched this film a second time yesterday. We went back to the movie theater and watched the entire thing again.
This is how much Christopher Nolan is a name that we want to respect, in a sense that we're like, we must have missed something.
It's our fault.
We didn't go into it with enough brain power.
Yeah.
We have to go in and watch it a second time to make sure that it wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah. And I'm not even, I would say I'm not the biggest like fanboy of Christopher Nolan, but I certainly respect each of his films. The plot at the end, I'm always like, wow, that is a tight fucking plot. That is really good.
Well written.
Yeah. So there was a feeling
it's also
of
written by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, exactly.
Written and directed by.
And just, it's a completely original story. It's not based on anything.
No.
And then I mentioned watching it for a second time because in that theater, which was not IMAX, I could understand the dialogue a lot more.
It was easy,
and I realized how important it actually was to understand what people are saying. Which you could say in any movie. Of course, you need to understand what's going on.
Here, it was like one
It's like
word.
if you missed one word or one little detail, you're just playing catch up for the rest of the time. You're like, wait, why did he go to that thing? And
scene.
what?
Yeah. It was so compact.
Yeah.
And I think what
and not a lot of showing. It's not like, here's a scene and then we see a visual of kind of, here's the thing I need to get, or it was a lot of exposition in dialogue.
Yeah. Exposition is where you like explain something that's happening in the plot, or some kind of context that needs to be given.
Yeah.
It's called exposition. And it's something that like in screenwriting is quite a difficult thing to do, because you run the risk of, if exposition is done poorly, it feels very much like, oh, now you're just kind of explaining to the audience what they should really be learning and kind of getting themselves without someone kind of spoon feeding you.
We don't like to be told
exactly
what the rules are of the world.
So it was a little bit of a whoa, there's so much here that I need to be listening to. And then like you kind of get hung up on one thing that you're trying to figure out, and then boom, 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 you're like 3 scenes later.
Yeah.
And the film moves so quickly.
So quick.
I wanted to say though that after the second viewing, I think it's clear that it all makes sense.
No.
Story-wise, it all makes sense. Concept-wise, we can get into what makes sense and what doesn't.
Right.
But story-wise, after the first viewing, I was like, that didn't make sense.
Right.
After the second screen, I was like, okay, I can see it. It all leads. It's all connected. It all fits
I see
together.
what you're saying. Yeah.
I remember thinking the first time we watched it that, wow, part of this experience is that it's made to be confusing on purpose, and this is going to play some kind of role very soon. Like halfway through the film, you'll suddenly be told that, I don't know, like this isn't a spoiler, but because this doesn't happen, but that actually there are multiple realities,
right,
or something.
Yeah.
And I was like expecting something like that. That shows you how it felt like there was just so many different things happening that it was hard to follow and hard to know if it was what's real, what's not. Is it this chronological?
It would also leave out, I mean, it's a really interesting style. It would leave out beats, and it wouldn't explain. It wouldn't be like, oh, here's this person who now calls the person and says, pick up this car or something. Somebody just gets in a car, for example, and you go, wait, why did he just get into that? And you have to sort of extrapolate, oh, somebody must have called him.
You have to do so much work
briefed
as
him
the
on
audience.
this, and now so you're constantly watching, trying to take in what's happening, also trying to fill in between scenes kind of what's happened. But then there's also, now thinking about it, can we just get into spoilers? I found it very hard not to just talk about.
Well, let's wrap up this first part of it then, and just kind of in a general sense, like what's your opinion about the film?
I think having talked to you about it and understanding that it's supposed to be his James Bond in a sense, a spy story. It's within that genre.
Yeah.
Which just isn't my favorite. I didn't grow up watching those movies. I've never really had like an affinity for them. So I think in terms of that, it's not really my style of film. But the sort of technical feats, and I think we were saying yesterday how much it forced us to talk about the film afterwards is kind of like a separate metric that I don't really know how to.
Which kind of like brings up the overall score.
Yeah, but I would say it's not like it's not my favorite film of his, or it's.
If you had to give it a rating between 0 and 10, what would you give it?
I think like maybe a 6.
Yeah, I was gonna say 7. I know that you say
never
that you
say
can't
7.
say 7. You have to say 8 or 6.
Yeah,
it's 7, unfortunately. And the reason why is because, I agree with you. It's such an amazing visual spectacle, and it's so just awe-inspiring how they did it.
Yeah,
we'll get into that in a sec.
Yeah.
But the story just didn't connect with me.
Yeah.
I didn't feel emotionally connected to the characters. I didn't feel any kind of strong feelings towards wanting something to happen in the story. I felt very little connection to the story in that sense. I was just kind of watching what was happening and not being able to engage as much because it was just so overwhelming.
Yeah. I will also say I find it so hard to review things sometimes because it's like on different
it's
metrics.
All opinions.
Obviously, but it's like as a film, I would rate it this way. I mean, I guess I'd have to think about it because I would give him a lot of points for like it's a huge budget movie.
Yeah,
but he's still fucking pushing it.
Yeah,
he's not like
no.
It would have been so easy to do like a pretty simple James Bond story, if that's what he wanted to do or something. It's like he's still taking that risk, which he has to have like shown that film to people, and they're just like, are you sure? Like this is so.
I think that's
why. It's not like we know something that he doesn't know.
No.
So there's this feeling of like, wow, I respect that so much.
That's why I give him a 7 and not a 3.
Yeah.
So if it were just on story, honestly, like, I felt very little. Yeah. But like it's on all these other levels just so amazing.
Yeah, because
that's why it's so high.
Yeah. It really is like I think he says in the behind the scenes he's trying to like redefine the action film, you know. And it's like, fuck yeah. Like,
it feels like it.
It's not just another blockbuster boring ass story.
Right.
You know.
Let's get into some details. For those of you who don't want to know anything that will spoil the film, you should stop watching now.
It's all a dream the whole time they're in. No, I'm kidding. I think one thing that I just wanted to say is that there might be some theme in there. You know, the scientist says that you don't try to understand it. And he goes, intuition. And I feel like in a way, it's how the film is watched as well. You gotta let go a little bit and just accept the things that are happening. And almost like a stream, just kind of be pushed along by it. And I was willing to do that. And I feel like there just wasn't the payoff in the end, you know, for having given so much confusion and not understanding. And like you go through the whole thing and it's like, you want to leave on a note of, I see why you did this to me. I don't know, like Memento or something. Like obviously you're confused at the beginning.
You slowly start to piece it together. And you do slowly start to kind of understand what's going on.
It's
at least the second time we watched it.
The second time I think we understood the plot. And by plot we mean, I think a lot of what I mean is Act 1 up to the midpoint of Act 2. That's
what you mean by plot?
As in like, that's like the storyline. That's like, I'm seeing this person and because of this person I now need to see this person and because of this. I think in the first viewing I did understand sort of the basic concept of this like time and the inverse time and kind of how it was like.
Should we talk about what that is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the major concept is that at some point in the future, some scientists has figured out how to build a machine
an algorithm
and that inverses time, so you can kind of
travel. The opposite of entropy.
What's entropy?
Entropy is a fundamental law of the universe that everything descends into chaos, basically. So everything goes from order to disorder, always.
And so the opposite of that would be it goes from disorder to order. How does that relate to time moving backwards?
Well, I think from what I had just read, someone saying the whole point of the thing is that in the future everything's so fucked up.
Right.
That they see no other option but to go back in time, to reverse the flow of time. And the scientist finds out, you know, how to do this. But obviously, I think that's the reference to Oppenheimer as well. I think he created the nuclear bomb. And I remember, so many tangents, a German play that I had to read in school that was all about these physicists having come up with something and the morality of like,
what have I created?
But it's science. So it's like you're just doing your passion, you're just finding out, and then you suddenly realize, you know, the thing that you've kind of discovered is capable of like destroying all of humanity. But you also can't suppress knowledge. Like knowledge is knowledge. It's someone else is going to find it. You know?
Right.
And whose responsibility is it? All those interesting questions. They kind of draw a parallel to the scientist who had found a way to reverse entropy with, it's not very clear how. They call it the algorithm. From what I read as well, the whole point is that they're going to blow up these nuclear bombs, which is going to rumble the algorithm, whatever this algorithm is, and that's going to start reversing the flow of time. That's the concept of the movie. And that there's these machines that can invert you, which means instead of flowing through time in a forward direction, you would be going backwards.
And they keep saying it's not time travel.
No.
Which is super confusing as well, because like it's like you're going back in time, but it's not time travel.
Because I think it's creating a new parallel universe, basically.
Right, which they also don't talk about that much.
No.
Every time there's something that seems difficult to understand or is like a paradox and that it couldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like they talk about the idea of, well, if you went back in time and killed your grandfather,
Yeah.
how could you exist to go back in time to kill your grandfather?
Yeah.
Well, they say it's a paradox. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like there is no explanation. And so you're kind of left to just have to accept that it doesn't make sense and that you can't understand it.
I feel like that's a big part of the movie.
Yes, it is.
And it's like it's a very tough thing to watch, sort of making a
to
movie
me,
that you're
that's not
saying.
the thing I don't like about it.
Oh.
To me, I like those parts.
I like those parts, but I still want something that
You want it
makes
to be
sense in my head at the
grounded
end.
in that like really strong character study or like a really strong story of emotion between real people who you can relate to, and then you have this epic concept that surrounds the whole thing and just makes everything more exciting.
Yeah.
Like Inception.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in Inception, you have also a pretty radical concept of being able to share dreams.
Yeah.
And people can influence your thoughts and plant ideas in your head without you knowing it. Like that's not something that's possible.
Yeah.
But
you understand it, and they explain the rules of it.
You do. Yeah, that's true. It's very clear what the rules are.
Super, like, maybe not the first time you watch it, but when Inception is not like everybody gets it at some point. You go in people's dreams, and the further you go into a dream, the slower time gets, and you can plant ideas.
Yeah,
and you can,
But they do explore the concept of paradoxes in Inception as well. Like, how can you know if you're wouldn't you be able to identify if a thought is your own, or when does a thought become reality, and what is real, and if you think it's real, then it's real, and all those things are still stuff that's like, well, you can't really know, and it doesn't really answer, but you're not also left thinking, I need to know.
It's not what you're focused on.
No, it's not what you're focused on. That's what I mean by it's like a blanket that surrounds it and makes it just everything feel more intense and more. There's more at stake, and it's just more epic, and it kind of makes it feel like all the insane visuals are so much more justified because it's this grand experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what was missing, was that like core
we said
story.
We didn't really understand anything about the main character, who's called the protagonist.
He doesn't have a name. Let's start with that. We were just like, what was his name, by the way?
Yeah.
The main character, I'd say, straight up lacks an arc of any kind.
There's no setup to him. There's
don't know who
what we
he
were just
is.
saying the other week is, the problem with a lot of short films that I've made, at least, is that I start a situation that happens to my main character, but we don't know why. Why should we care that the character is gonna get put in prison, or is gonna die, or is gonna, if we haven't seen a scene of him with a family, or something that reveals something about the character's morals, about the character's ethics, about how the character lives in the world. How this film starts, you're just in this like action moment with this character, and you never find, like, tell me something about
Him.
that character besides
That everything just happens to him.
Yeah.
And obviously he does make decisions. He's not like completely at the mercy of the plot of the film.
Yeah.
But you don't know why he's doing anything that he's doing.
No.
And you can say the only thing that is a character trait of his is that he does seem to genuinely care about the female lead of the film. He seems emotionally invested in her well-being. And you don't know why.
Yeah. There's a scene where he takes a suicide pill, takes some cyanide, to not rat out the rest of his crew. Yeah. Right? And sort of like
that's one of the first scenes.
Through. Yeah.
So that I guess that is what is the setup.
Yeah, you're supposed to know that he's the guy. I think the other character says, a lot of people imagine that they would run into the burning house to save someone, but you've actually felt the heat and done it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like,
he's a guy he's
a
like,
hero.
Yeah, he's I'm talking myself out of the fact that there's no setup.
But we still don't see who are the people that he saved. Who are these? Who is his crew? What is their relationship, so that we can kind of get a sense of like, these are the people he's protecting. Yeah. We also don't fully understand that he's saving anybody until afterwards in the dialogue. Yeah. When you get this guy saying, hey, you just saved everybody. Mm-hmm. But we're also past that moment then a little bit.
Because he's also saying that was actually just a test.
Yeah.
It wasn't real.
And you're still trying to figure out like what the hell is happening in this plot. So I think there's
Good point. Good point. I think maybe it's not that there isn't necessarily a setup, but there's other elements missing to kind of ground it in an understanding that's emotion driven. You have a theoretical understanding of, okay, he's the kind of guy who runs into the burning house to save people. He's the guy who, he's the hero. Yeah. But you don't really feel it.
Yeah, because it's so abstract. I'm going to kill myself so I don't expose the rest of this team that we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I can't help but draw the parallel to James Bond.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Especially the early James Bond films.
Yeah.
You know, he's almost just like this.
It's a flat arc.
Yeah, I
he
guess
does not change.
Yeah, he does not change, but even like
the world changes. The world goes from it's about to be over to
not, and
not.
It's because of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that definitely is true.
Yeah, which is just a bit of a. Yeah, this is a bit for me at least.
Not flat arcs aren't always like that though. I mean, you can have very compelling.
You said Forrest Gump, a great movie.
Yeah, great. You're emotionally connected to the character.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
Yeah, I don't think it's the art. I think, like we said, it's a bit the character that's just hard to.
And I wouldn't even say. I mean, I thought he was great in it.
Oh,
I really liked his performance,
especially the second time.
What's I don't remember his first name. Do you remember what he's called?
I'll have a look.
John?
Yeah, I just know that his
Washington.
last name is Washington.
Oh, the actor's name?
Yeah.
George Michael Washington.
George Michael Washington.
George Michael Washington.
Son of Denzel Washington, fun fact. I was like, when we were watching it, I was like, oh my God, he sounds so much like Denzel Washington.
No, he was great.
Same last name, could be his son. I looked it up afterwards. It was. And I realized that I did actually know him as an actor because when I said I saw the poster walking in.
Right.
I was like, oh, I don't know who that is. Like, it's an unknown actor to me.
You watched Black Klansman?
Yeah, I'd watched Black Klansman. So when I started watching it, I was like, oh, he does look familiar, but I didn't remember. Which added to the whole mystery of things. It's not like a well-known.
Yeah.
At least yet. I mean, I'd say now he's probably pretty considerably well-known after doing that.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean,
I still can't.
It's very. We were saying as well. It's very hard to talk about this film in a negative light.
It is
because of the reverence for the director. So you have this feeling of like, it's me.
I'm wrong. Yeah.
You know, it's something about, or just the feeling of like, almost an insecurity. Everybody's gonna love this film, and I'm gonna be the one who goes, I didn't really like it.
A little snobby, maybe.
Yeah, or like
I'm also conflicted because that night when I was falling asleep at like 4 a.m. after the screening, I couldn't fall asleep because I kept thinking to myself, "Wait, was it a masterpiece?" And like in a few days, or even like in a couple of years, I'll be like, "Oh my God!"
But that would be a beautiful, And
I think maybe it is on that level, and it just takes that time for it to settle in and for you to be able to understand what it is. And that to me is also so exciting because it's like nothing else. I can't think of another film where I've been so conflicted about it, to be honest.
Right.
Like the fact that I wanted to really passionately wanted to go see it a second time.
Yeah.
After having in a lot of ways negative first viewing experience.
Yeah.
And then also just like loving so many moments in the film. And then also being so like confused at other points. And it's just such a weird combination of the two that maybe this is just a new kind of film.
Maybe.
Where it just takes, this idea of, you watch a film once and boom, it's done. It's over. The experience is over.
Yeah.
To like how much time have we spent thinking, talking, living this movie now? Before it came out, while we were watching it,
it's
watching it the second time, all day today we've been talking about it. All yesterday we were talking about it.
But I would still have this opinion until it changes.
Right. But I'm saying I'm not sure what my opinion is. I'm just trying to like explore it a little bit. Like I felt not super emotionally involved, but at the same time I was like blown away. Let's talk about some of the more practical stuff.
Okay.
Like the more technical stuff. So first of all, there's very, very little CGI in this film.
Yeah, he does.
It's all practical.
Pretty much all
effects.
practical.
It's
effects.
all in camera.
Yeah.
So when they crash a plane,
They're crashing.
it's
a plane
real plane that they're crashing into a real building, and that's real explosions
at a
happening.
real airport.
At a real airport as well. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
And there's no green screens.
No.
We watched a behind the scenes little thing afterwards, and the actors are like, we walked on set and there's like no green screens, and like in Hollywood you're like not used to that, so it's like, wait, is this like the right place? Like, are we filming here? It's just they go to all the real locations.
It's kind of his style.
It's so good. It's so amazing. You can totally tell.
I think so. It's some of the, because you're so used to seeing stunts and VFX where it's like they're in a car and they're on top of the car and the car's going like 100 miles an hour and you're like, holy fuck.
And then when you see
a practical version, everything feels a little slower. But at the same time, there's more weight to the scene because you're like, you really get that feeling of,
you could fall off.
Well, they would have ramped this up the speed if this was a green screen.
It just looks real.
It's
hard to explain because like you couldn't like show me a CGI scene and I
think there's a lot of CGI probably. I would imagine there's VFX.
Yeah, there's VFX within the shots, but the actual like stunts and like
exactly.
those big things,
they're
like,
on location,
like
they're
certain, like when there's gun battles and like bullets are flying around and stuff, is like some of that's CGI. It was saying that there's like something like 200 CGI shots in there, which is
not much.
There in Dunkirk, his previous film, which like doesn't look like there's really any CGI in it, there's like 500 shots. And in something like the Avengers, there's probably like a couple thousand.
I don't even know. The whole thing is
the whole thing, every shot,
just
every
animation
second.
Basically.
Yeah, it's animation. But there's just like the weight to it. Everything feels connected.
And I think for the actors as well, they were saying, it's obviously helps you get into character,
right?
If that shit is actually there. And that in combination with, shooting on IMAX and you have a fucking real thing, it just brings the pressure.
Brings the A game of everyone involved.
Yeah, it's just I gotta do my best.
Yeah. Which that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I can imagine on a green screen it takes a couple takes.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's try this.
There's this massive snake and you gotta pretend that it's gonna,
But the most amazing part is the how they achieved this inverse time effect. So let's quickly talk about the main concept is what we said, that you can travel back in time.
Yeah.
But the interesting part that is different from other time travel films is that you're actually traveling backwards in time.
Yeah.
It's not that you go back to a time
single point
and then move forward again. It's that you actually live in reverse.
Yeah.
Meaning the birds are flying backwards, water's flowing backwards, time is literally moving backwards. Everyone else is walking backwards. And there's these people who aren't moving backwards, kind of making their way in and out of these different situations on screen. And I was like, how the fuck did they do that? It looks so real. Like, how would they? It looks so real. And I was like, I was looking at like they're wearing helmets and there's like, explosions that are going back into the ground. And I'm like, the reflection of the explosion is on his helmet. So like little details like that. And then it's like, oh, they actually just practiced running backwards. Rehearsed speaking backwards. Like, what's the movement when you're moving backwards? Choreographing fights in reverse. And then filming everything both forwards and backwards so that they could create in the edit this insanely intricate combination of forward moving shots and backwards moving shots.
A lot of times I think they would shoot it twice.
They said everything they shot
once
twice.
Forward, once
everything
backwards.
That's in the inverse they shot twice.
Yeah, which it's such a good idea for a movie.
He said he came up with it at the same time as he was writing Inception. Those two things were kind of being born at the same time.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because I was also hurting my brain in the theater. I was trying to think, because I was like, you have to, when you're watching it, for example, there's a reverse guy fighting with a forward guy.
Yeah.
Right? And it just doesn't make sense in my head how that would actually work. So really what the fight sequence ends up being is this kind of combination of they're going forward, now they're going reverse, and now they're going forward, and it's kind of trying to blend
tricking you.
The two together into thinking one is going reverse. And then I was thinking, like, would it even be possible to choreograph a fight where literally one person is in reverse and the other person is in forward motion? And it just breaks my brain as soon as I try to
it's
sort
so
of like,
difficult to try and understand.
Yeah. So I think for like to make that feel authentic is such a good job. Especially with the fact that it's all practical. Although sometimes I will say it did take me out of the story a little bit because I could just pick out people every once in a while where they just look so ridiculous the way they were running. Because it's that awkward thing when someone is trying to run in reverse and then you play it forward.
And it looks a little off.
You just tell right away.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes. And I think they were trying things where it's like you're kind of marching. So you're kind of hopping more than you're walking. Because I think walking would probably be the hardest.
Right.
But still, you're just like, why are they moving so slowly?
Yeah. It didn't take me out of it, but when you mention it, it's true. There were definitely a couple of people who were like moving a little funky.
Yeah, it's like,
but it
kind of sounds like the same,
blends in.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole like what you're able to achieve by doing it practically that way is just kind of amazing.
But I think that speaks to the point where it's like, because I noticed that, I know, and I noticed it in the third act. I know how out of the story I was.
Right.
I was just like looking at the screen like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, this guy over here, this thing over here. Like super interesting. Wow, look at these effects.
Yeah.
I honestly, the first time I watched it, I had no idea
where they
what
were,
was going on,
who they were fighting against.
No.
What country they're in.
And I remember there's one scene where they're explaining it. He's like, and then these guys are going to go over this thing and you're going to go in this tunnel and they're going to meet in the middle somehow. But he also says, goes, oh, what's the main character, the protagonist goes, what's the other team doing? And he's like, oh, you don't need to know about that. So he is also following Aaron Sorkin's rule of like, I'm confused, but the film is telling me it's okay that you're confused.
Right.
But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't know what is this for? And it's such a long sequence. It's a long time to spend not knowing what's going on. I'm not even entirely sure who the bad guys are. I know there's some Russians. I don't even know how many there are. I don't even know the layout of the fight. It was a really bizarre experience in many ways. It kind of felt like waking up or like turning on the TV and a film started and you're kind of just trying to be like, can I catch up and understand what's going on here?
Yeah.
All the time. I was like, I kind of feel like I've missed huge scenes.
Just talking about it, I can't help but think about how things that are satisfying, though, is that feeling of the scene starts, and because you know that someone is going to be experiencing the same scene in the inverse, you know that you're going to see the same exact scene a little bit later from a different perspective and have a different understanding from it. Yeah. And then, so like the scene will open with, a container door opening and people running out of it in reverse. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck? And then the same scene obviously ends with them finally making it off the battlefield and just making it in and the container door closed. And you're like, cool. Like, I kind of saw that. But you're also like, wait, what happened in between? And like, what are they fighting for? All those questions make it very hard to have those moments that actually are there, those satisfying like aha moments feel less exciting because you're still like thinking about all the scenes just before then, trying to make sense of them.
Well, also he works in tension in the film. There's so many like suspenseful moments. It would make sense to me if those weren't there, going like, it's fine, you're confused, you don't need to care, here's this thing I'm trying. But as soon as you cut to a scene where it's like, I'm trying to grab this rope, but I just can't reach it. I need to go a little bit further. But I don't know what the rope is. Yeah. It's like we're in some weird scene now where I'm like, I have no idea what the rope is. I don't care about the person who's about to pull the rope.
I'm also not sure who they are.
No,
because they're wearing masks.
Dude, everybody's wearing masks in the movie. It's such
Everyone's voice is muffled because they're breathing through these devices that obviously makes your voice muffled. Yeah. So they all kind of sound the same. There's two teams. One wears a blue tag. The other wears a red tag. But it's like
one is going forwards, one is going backwards. Even the idea of, I mean, it is interesting to think about. They're saying they do these pincer
movements.
Yeah. So it's like a tactical move where you have one team going in reverse.
Let's just say it's like a military tactic.
Yeah,
These guys are
the Russians use it as well.
Yeah.
And then you have one team who's going in reverse backwards through the event, and you have one team that's going forward through the event.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that way you kind of know
what happens before it happens.
Know what happens before it happens.
Because you will have a briefing before that where the team will have just gone through everything
exactly
in reverse.
Exactly.
And we'll be able to tell you what just happened.
You're about to, yeah.
Paradoxes are constantly popping up, right? Because how can a team go through something and know what happens and then tell the team? But obviously, the exact same thing is still going to happen because it happened. Yeah. And they keep saying that.
And they address it. It's just not as, he goes, well, because we're here, haven't we already made it? Mm-hmm. Point being, if
the world had
ended,
in the future,
if the world had ended, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And it addresses it, and it kind of tells you they're going to be fine in the film.
Right. Which is often the case with films. You know that James Bond's not going to die, but it's still exciting.
But you want to see somebody die.
Yeah, the bad guy.
Not even the bad guy. It's just like...
No, you want there to be... You were saying you didn't feel any fear for the characters. So you didn't feel like there was a chance of someone who you really cared about dying in the film.
Yeah, even when the girl is shot, for some reason, you're just like, she'll be fine.
I'm still trying to figure out, wait, did she just get shot or did she get unshot?
She got inverse shot.
Yeah, I know. I know, but while it's happening, I'm so focused on trying to understand the science and the concept that I'm less involved in wait, is she gonna die? Or they can just reverse time and then it'll all be okay and then it'll all happen. Wait, is she getting shot right now? Or
which is also never explained.
Yeah.
That when you get inverse shot for some reason, it's way worse than getting.
Well, I thought that made quite a lot of sense just because of the shape of a bullet.
But why would it? It felt like, she's gonna be dead in 3 hours unless we put her in the inversion machine, and then she's gonna be fine. She needs to spend some time in the inverse. Because
that made sense to me because there's that whole thing about most people are living their life going forward, so the general flow of time is that way. Yeah. So when you then go into the inverse, you're kind of the outlier. Yeah. And you're less affected by what's happening in that world because time is flowing the other way for you. There's a primary flowing of things. So when he at one point is an explosion, which you think would kill him, it doesn't really affect him because I think it's kind of the same thing. So because she's wounded, she's less affected by it because she goes into the inverse.
But then she goes back into the reality. Mate. There's something about it's the whole thing is there's these questions that just don't quite have an answer.
But real quick about the bullet, that does make sense. What? That when a bullet moves inversely through you, it'll
rip much more.
Yeah, rip through you rather than puncture you cleanly.
Right.
Does make sense just because of the shape of a bullet.
It's
pointy at one end and on the other end it's flat.
I still don't get that. I get. Yeah. That would be worse, I guess, than a real bullet.
Yeah, she says it's not a pretty sight, which made me imagine, it's it'll rip her open, which it is.
Right.
The scar on her stomach is it's not a bullet wound.
You know what, that makes sense. But then what's the deal with the inverse?
What I just said.
No, that didn't make any sense.
Oh man, my brain's hurting just talking about it.
Or some other things.
Well, so I think let's move on from talking about the fact that this was really an overwhelmingly confusing experience. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit more about
Look, but I also want to say I'm happy to be confused.
Yeah, same.
I watch a lot of movies where I don't know what the fuck is going on, and I'm willing to go with it. I think I said yesterday too, part of what's even more confusing about this movie is that he's shooting it in a style of a movie that is very easily digested. It's this James Bond style, which when you watch that, you're like,
it's so
you
clean.
could literally come in halfway into a James Bond movie and be like, oh, I get it.
It's cool.
Yeah. So you're in this world where you're expecting to understand things, and it's an additional confusion. You're like, oh, it must be me. That's something wrong with me. I'm not watching this art house film that's
shot in an abstract way. That's obviously abstract. Suddenly, a a chicken is in the scene. You have no idea where the chicken
You
came
go,
from, but
okay.
it's meant to be an expression of the person's emotions. So you just kind of go along with it,
Yeah.
and you know that it's an experience.
Yeah.
This is very much like a clean cut, super precise,
Yeah.
blockbuster feel, stunt action film.
I mean, it looks like a Bond film.
yeah, it totally does.
The like drone shots, and we're in different locations, and
Globe hopping,
and
globe
you're just
trotting.
globetrotting, and you're just like, I'm so confused.
It's an interesting combination of two styles, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to talk about the sound design because to me
Yeah,
that
it's good.
was just so good.
Yeah.
So there's this obvious theme of inverse time, which
Yeah.
leads to an obvious exploration of what does stuff sound like in reverse,
Yeah.
and how do you like combine it with sounds that are playing in real, like the real way,
Yeah.
to make something that sounds like. So when you play something in reverse, it just sounds like shit.
Yes.
If you play
Not always, but
not
yeah.
not always, but a lot of sounds will just, you can't really identify what it is. So you have to
Yeah.
like combine it with something real,
Yeah.
or like combine the real sound with an inverted thing of the same thing.
Yeah.
So like bullets, for example, I felt like were this weird combination of like
Yeah.
and at the same time. Like how the fuck did they? It's so
Yeah.
subtle.
Yeah.
I think that's what really made it cool. And even the soundtrack. So much of the soundtrack is these things that sound like they're moving kind of
Yeah.
in reverse.
I'm thinking of that scene where he shoots the glass.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, but then you have like actual glass shattering that's played forward,
Yeah.
for example.
I
So
was
it's
hurting my ears.
so it sounds real.
Yeah.
It doesn't just because it can't just sound like it's being played in reverse. I think
Yeah.
that was a big
Yeah.
because also if you're experiencing something
Well, even
in
the
reverse, you would expect to still have certain things like sound
Yeah.
real.
I would be curious. Now, I hadn't really thought about that, but I would imagine when he walks into the inverse for the first time,
Yeah.
that atmosphere, I'm picturing the sound of a seagull, not in reverse or something.
I think it was.
It was in reverse.
It was a combination of both. Because it wasn't just yuck.
Yeah, no, because if you just filmed an environment and put it in reverse, obviously it's not going to sound like that.
You like it's like stuff here, like the ship honking in the background was also like,
Yeah.
that's
And the cars were really cool.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool. But what I was saying is, so imagine
It almost made you feel sick at times. Like with the car, sorry, but when it like, it was also interesting that when he closes the door on the car, it shuts softly. You know, it's not a, it's like a quick and then,
right,
like the way you would open it basically.
yeah, exactly.
Everything was very, like such a small detail that you're like, oh, that's sick.
And they would rehearse that and do it that way.
Yeah.
But my point about the sound was that if you're in the inverse and you are experiencing a bullet move backwards through a piece of glass back into a gun,
Yeah.
would you hear? You would hear the shards of glass that had hit the floor first, so you'd hear the ting,
Yeah.
and then the major thing. Right?
Yes.
But I feel like what they probably did was have actual shards of glass hit the floor and play them in real time. But just the fact that things are out of order is what really
I would
adds to
imagine
the
you
feeling.
would have to do that.
Yeah, because otherwise everything just sounds abstract. And you
Yeah.
can't identify what it is because the brain is so good at identifying sounds.
Yeah.
that
Well,
you
even
have
just
to
the
play them
physics
in
of it.
real time.
I mean, when you have a gun, where you shoot the gun, you hear the crack. I mean, the sound wave, right?
Yeah.
I believe a bullet is faster than
Yes.
sound.
Yeah.
So when you play it in reverse,
Yeah.
sort of in this inverse,
Mm-hmm.
I think they did do it that way. Is that the sound wave would come slightly after the bullet, actually?
Oh, well, it would
No,
come
I don't
before
think
in
that.
reverse.
It would come before.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have the sound wave come first. Right, but I'm saying like in this inverse world,
Yeah.
where does the sound come from? Or is it just out there and it just kind of gets sucked back
Right.
in?
That's kind of what I'm trying to explore.
Yeah, that's weird.
If everything is in inverse.
Yeah. I mean, I was obviously aware of it, but now I want to watch it just to...
Yeah. No, I
Listen to the
really
sound.
was. I was very caught up by the sound effects.
Yeah.
There's that scene where, I mean, without going into too much detail, there's this like machine that allows you to access the inverse flow of time, and there's these two sides split in the middle with glass where you see your present self or your forward moving self and then your inverse self, where they're interacting with each other. And so one side is and then you kind of hear it on their side as forward speaking language, which we were trying to like, wait, what was allowing it to come out and sound that way? How were they able to understand each other? And then we were like, oh, it's probably because he says it once, and then the sound waves reach the other guy or move past this pane of glass, which now this is time flowing forward, so then the sounds would change to be forward moving, so it would sound real. So you'd hear everything twice. Which obviously you have to play a little bit with the...
Oh my god, another scene where you're like...
physics.
So hard to understand. I just would have loved side paddles. I'm sorry, I'm hung up on that.
On what?
Not understanding. Like, I remember watching that scene, trying so hard to understand it. Because it's like, you hear the reverse you can hear, and then you hear the echo almost of the thing that was actually being said.
Yeah.
As the other person is starting to like give their answer or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking that scene now, are they actually talking to each other, or is that the Russian guy expecting him to be there at one point, so he records the scene almost? It did feel very prepared, where it's like 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to shoot you, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go. Almost like he knows that the guy is going to be there at one point, and he's having the conversation with him because he's actually on the other side listening, because he comes in at some point and is like, is it in the BMW? I don't know. Realize that.
It does feel...
I don't think they're talking to each other, because it felt so weird.
How can you talk to each other?
You can't.
Yeah.
But you could like manipulate it, I guess, a little bit. I don't know. Very strange.
It's a toughie. It's really difficult to understand, and we've seen it twice.
I want to probably go a third time.
Oh my god. It was the first major film to come out since the pandemic started, which was a big deal. A lot of films have been postponed. This was the first one that came out.
To him for doing that,
and also for finishing it.
Yeah.
We were just reading up on how they were able to finish the post-production of things, which was interesting.
Yeah, and I was reading that a lot of people were like, this is not going to get done.
No.
And he really like just forced it to happen. Went from 11 sound engineers to just 5 and did social distancing, and
the composer would like go instead of have an orchestra playing in a big hall, he would go to people's houses and record them individually and then stitch it all together.
Yeah,
there's a solution for everything.
Yeah,
that soundtrack
was
pretty
great.
epic. Oh, it's also the first film since like The Dark Knight, I believe, or did he even do Insomnia?
Prestige.
A Prestige. Or that Hans Zimmer hasn't scored.
Yeah, because he's on Dune.
He was working on another film called Dune. I thought it was Hans Zimmer when we were watching it.
Yeah, it sounded really good.
It just had that like quality. It was so good.
Yeah.
Travis Scott credit song was also really, really cool.
Yeah.
Thought it worked.
Yeah, the first time I was like, I just find it weird when people play songs during the credits. Second time I was into it for some reason.
Again, like that whole like Bond theme.
Yeah.
You got that Bond theme song.
Right, they do a song for every Bond movie,
exactly.
Right?
It felt very much like, there's got to be a song in there.
Right.
We were also saying that it felt maybe like this was the first of a series of films.
Yeah, well, it ends in a very sort of like, oh, there could easily be a sequel, or this is just part of the theme of the film.
Yeah.
This feeling that...
I hope there's not.
That kind of makes sense. The film ends with the beginning, basically. It's like a palindrome, right? Mm-hmm. There is no end. There is no beginning.
No. Yeah, it just starts.
Which is kind of how the film ends. It really does. It just starts.
And just ends.
Yeah. Well, the ending feels kind of... What's the last... He talks to Neil he leaves. Is there a scene after that?
Yeah, and with Priya in the car.
Oh, right.
Pow pow.
Kills her, and then what?
And it just ends.
Is that where it ends?
Yeah.
They walk the
the mom and the
Catherine
kid.
and the kid. They walk off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's in the car sitting there.
And what's the last shot?
Them walking off.
Yeah.
That's the last shot.
Yeah, he's looking.
Is it fade to black?
No, it cuts to black.
Or it cuts to him
Christopher
looking?
Nolan, yeah. No, it's from his eyes looking at them, and then you see what he sees, and
Yeah.
he sees them walking off,
Yeah.
holding hands together, like he accomplished his mission.
Right.
And then it cuts
Even
to
though he said he was going to stay away.
written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
Written and directed by.
Yeah, I feel like that's all we got.
Pretty
insane experience.
Yeah.
In a weird way, like, so it's still worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely go watch it.
Go watch it if it's safe to watch it where you are.
Yeah.
Go watch. I mean, that's one of those movies that's like, yeah, it's worth to watch in IMAX.
You gotta experience it for yourself.
I want to watch a movie and go, oh, that wasn't worth watching in
IMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, go watch Wonder Woman 84.
Wonder Woman. What? Is everybody wearing parachute pants here? It's this terrible joke that kept playing at the end of every trailer.
Yeah, we watched a lot of trailers, but you feel like you watch so many trailers when you go and watch the same movie twice and
It's
you see the
funny.
exact same trailers twice.
Same.
Yeah.
Robin, do you have any comments?
Mm,
What did you think?
Anything you want to add?
the confusion I appreciated a lot more than disliked.
Okay.
I think it did feel very much like Inception. There are definitely a lot of carry-throughs.
Okay.
What would you say is a carry through?
The whole temporal shifts being the main thing. At points sort of being, obviously you know when it's when they're inverted and when they're not, but you still have the shift, the blending between the forward motion and the reverse motion for the people who are inverted and the people who aren't, moving at the same time basically.
Say that again.
Doesn't matter.
You're saying even though they're inverted, there's still a forward-moving timeline?
The people around them are moving. If they're moving forward, the people around them... No, if they're moving backward, the people around them are technically still moving forward.
In time.
In time, yeah. So like when he's, for example, when he first drives the car,
Yeah.
he's technically driving forward.
Yeah.
But then when you see the pedestrians walking by him, they're walking backwards, and then they sort of, maybe they're already looking at him,
Yeah.
and then they sort of continue walking backwards.
Yeah. So he's moving backwards in their perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think the one thing that I found the most difficult to get my head around was why you're meant to care about these characters. I think Robert Pattinson you kind of care about a little bit, at least more than...
Yeah.
It's just because there's more... You feel more emotion coming from him, but maybe that's also just the kind of character.
Because he's white?
Oh my God. No, not at all. He's just... he like... You can tell that he cares about the main dude.
Yeah.
But obviously, I guess because... what's the main character's name?
The protagonist.
The protagonist.
Yeah, he doesn't have a name.
He doesn't have a name.
No.
He's actually
That's why
called
he's
the
so hard to
protagonist.
talk about.
Yeah.
Like, and then
The dude.
oh, what the fuck's his name? And it's like, oh, he
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, they haven't given him a name.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's meant to be like that because you're sort of... He doesn't know what's happening, but a lot of people around him know what the situation is. So like Neil, for example, knows everything because he's already experienced all of that before.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also why.
Yeah.
It's the fact that he has all this knowledge already, whereas the protagonist doesn't.
You know what? Maybe if he was more like, there was a scene where he was like, "What the fuck is going on? I don't understand how this is working." You'd be like,
He just kind of follows
"Me too."
along with everything. Like,
He's like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
and like, whoa.
But he also never feels worried.
but that's also why it's very James.
That's what I mean.
The style
Yeah,
is
he's very cool, calm, and collected.
Always.
He's got everything under control. He
knows
doesn't
what's
do
happening.
anything.
Where's
Yeah.
the all is lost moment? I'm not like, oh, we need to have it, but I'm just curious. It's like, that does something that we go, oh, this guy's fucked.
Yeah.
How is he going to get out of this situation?
Oh, man.
He just didn't have an emotional range. It just felt like he's so cool, calm, and collected. Even when he like has blood and he's like punched in the face, like he still looks like a badass.
Super chill. He like shrugs the other Russian dude away when he tries to like. He's just a super cool character.
Well, he is. And that's what,
But
again,
do you care about James Bond? I haven't watched a lot of those movies. Do you care about James Bond when you watch that?
No.
So that's kind of the.
You know nothing can happen.
You know what? It's almost like, again, obviously Christopher Nolan knows this stuff, and it's almost like he's. Yeah, he called him the protagonist. There's no name.
Yeah, it's like it's on purpose.
He's like playing
That's
games.
why I'm like, it's a masterpiece.
You literally never worry about him.
Huh?
There's not one moment where you worry about what's going to happen to him, because you, for some reason, from the start, you know, nothing's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
Other people around him, they might get hurt, they might die, but him, you just.
But also, nobody gets hurt and nobody dies. I guess the girl gets shot.
Priya
She
dies.
gets shot. There's a chance that she's gonna die.
Yeah, but nobody that you care about.
Right now, add little explosions coming from our minds.
Yeah. I do have a feeling it's like.
That'll be funny, right?
He's so weird. The I really had a lot of, not any like plot or like skill or anything, but a lot of connections with Boris and Johan, the film that I made. And I really felt there was a lot of stuff like in that film. I had said, I want to make a film that's a purposely bad film. It's shot terribly. It's edited bad because the main character of the film is editing it. All these kind of like meta, like it's a film it's being made within the film.
Oh my God, yeah. We were at one point trying to edit it as if we were amateur editors and didn't know how to edit.
Yeah. And it would have been
terrible.
A cool idea, but then I was like, if you don't understand that,
Are people going to get that?
you just think it's a bad film because that's all I'm showing you. You know? It's so much of me to ask you to go, oh, of course. He's editing it, so now it's a bad film because the character is, and it's like,
well, it can't be good and bad at the same time.
Not all those ideas always translate.
Right.
And I think I had done, like, I was telling Matt, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this title sequence, and it's like intentionally a bad, and it's like, no, it's just a bad title sequence at the end of the day.
You can't experience it as good just because you know it's meant to be bad.
Yeah, I'm also not there in the theater to explain to everybody, like, hey, just so you know. And I feel like in a lot of ways, there's a lot Christopher Nolan's trying to do in this that will... I think it's one of those things, you watch it a couple more times and we'll find out if it's either like, holy shit, this actually is fucking genius, or it's like...
Well, it is. Let's say it's genius on a lot of levels, but is it overall?
Like on what levels?
Oh, the visual style and
as a film,
all those,
yeah.
Just have the balls to do something like that.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, pushing it even though it's new. Even though he has such a big budget, he's still pushing the limits, the boundaries of what's possible, like what you can do. And let's try and do it this way. I can imagine him on set or like when they're, preparing for the film and people just being like, wait, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Like, no, we're going to do it with a real plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, no. I want people to actually be fighting in backwards.
Yeah.
And like, we're going to rehearse backwards. Okay, that doesn't sound like that's gonna work.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine like a lot of people being like doubting him, but still like obviously he knows what he's doing.
Of course.
Oh.
And then also, I always talk about the magic of film and some things that I think you just can't know until after you make the film. And it's little things like there's one little token in the film that you're supposed to see, I think, 3 times throughout the film, which indicates one of the characters. It's this little like metal ring. And the thing is, I think I've had that experience before where you show something in the film and you expect everybody to go like, oh yeah, that metal ring.
But they don't.
There
and
it is.
Sometimes it's like universally, we don't recognize that as like oh, of course, that thing again. And it's so hard. I feel like it's so hard to know when that will work and when it won't work. When you show an envelope in a movie and people will remember it, and at the end of the movie when you show the envelope again, they'll go like, oh, of course, the envelope because I had that sign on it or whatever. Or sometimes in a movie you're like, what the fuck is that envelope? And someone's like, oh yeah, that was 2 minutes into the film there was this like reference to it or something, you know.
It's also
I feel
because
like
so
it's-
much is happening. How are you meant to focus on that or remember that?
That's what I was going to say, because I would say it is. I think you can, like, to a degree, be able to know when an audience is going to know what it is and when they're not. If you've placed enough emphasis on it at the right time and it's not far enough away from when it happens again. But that in this film, it happens like almost like it happens pretty straight away, like 7 minutes in.
Yeah, but just
everything surrounding it is already a question.
But the ending is super clear, and I missed that the first time.
It's not. What do you mean at the ending? When you see it? Yeah,
You see
it
it
3 times?
when he's like dead,
Yeah.
and then you see it pretty relatively soon
Yeah.
after. And it's like, I don't know if it just didn't catch my eye in the frame, or if it didn't, you know.
I think it's because the first time it didn't really.
What?
Imagine if the first time you saw that ring.
I still didn't see it the second time I watched it.
Right. So if you had,
I never saw the first one. I've only seen
yeah.
the second and the third.
So imagine if you had seen it the first time. If it was a lot more of a moment, then you probably would have noticed it the second time.
Right, but
and
you
then it
also-
would have made sense the third time.
Yeah, I guess there it's not that important, but I also understand that like you want to hide it a little bit. You don't want it to be like,
Yeah.
remember this thing. It's huge later. It's like, exactly how many frames do you hold on?
Yeah.
Where collectively 99% of the audience has gone, aha, I got it. You know? And a lot of the film was, I think, to do with like, he's not putting you on a plate for you to go, remember this. This is going to be really important later. You know, those things pop up again. You're like, oh shit. Which I think is like part of the end. It's such a balance. Like how much do you focus on something so it doesn't feel like so obvious later? Like, oh, of course, I was expecting this, but not long enough, or long enough at least that you understand it, or you saw it at least. I feel like, yeah. It's like the thing, I'm going off a total tangent, where you track all the eyes in the theater. They
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
And you can see that there's the collective kind of point that everybody is looking at, you know?
They're looking at the ring. They're
Yeah.
looking at it. It's working.
But let's say, like, you know, it's the pandemic, there's coronavirus. I
Yeah.
could imagine there's things where it's like he maybe couldn't show it to that many test audiences, or, you know, it's like it's kind of come out in a very weird time. I'm sure the procedure was different than it
That's
usually
really
is.
interesting, actually. That maybe there's just a handful of tiny little things that are just ever so slightly off.
Yeah.
That are having such a massive, like, run-on impact on
Yeah.
the film, or things, so small, tiny things aren't having the same exact impact as they're meant to have,
Right.
just because you weren't able to test it enough.
With as many, and the whole thing of like secrecy.
Yeah.
I think the bigger you get, the less likely you're like, oh, let me just send it out online to a bunch of people.
Yeah,
You're gonna be like, no fucking way. This is a $200 million film. I'm not risking this getting like leaked. Interesting thoughts.
That's an interesting thought, actually, because it does come down to tiny little details in the end, I'd say.
That's what I mean. It's not it's just like, I did not notice it.
Yeah.
You know. And then at the end, I knew it was important
Yeah.
because it's shown, and I'm like, I know that was something.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it was. I can't remember back.
That was the same experience. I was like, I know I've seen that, but where and what the hell it meant, I don't remember.
And not until the second movie did I understand, oh, he's gonna die. I was like,
Yeah.
in the first time, I was like, why are they talking so long? I don't even.
All right. Let's wrap this up.
All right. And
We'll see you.
It's wrapped up.
Okay, we already wrapped it up. We already said go watch it. We'll see you next week on the Burning Boat Show.